Hey everybody, Dr. Alyssa from Back and Step Physical Therapy. Today we're going to talk about a way that you can tape your knee using kinesiology tape to give it a little bit of support, especially if you feel like it's maybe not moving quite right. Folks who maybe have a history of subluxation or dislocation and things just feel a little loosey-goosey. I have found that this way in particular seems to work pretty well for a lot of people. There of course are a million different ways that we can tape and a lot of nuance that I consider when I have a client in front of me to help figure out how to tape a given body part, but this is a pretty tried and true method. So what I'm going to do first is cut my tape. I'm using this tape, whatever color you want. I find that trimming the edges can be really helpful, trimming the corners so that things don't get stuck. We're going to have one piece that's a little bit wider than my hand, so this is at least 6 inches or so, and then this other piece where we have the corners rounded again, it's definitely longer. It's about twice the length, if not a little bit more. And then I have a single slit down the center of it. So the last couple of inches, I have all in one piece, but otherwise the slit goes down the center. So those are gonna be the two pieces of tape that I want to use for this. Now, one of the things that I also recommend is the first time that you try doing this taping technique, because we're using two different pieces, I like to tape it so that they don't quite overlap. So if you decide that you hate one of the pieces or you need to make an adjustment, it's easy to remove one without being committed to removing both. You of course can overlap the tape as you're placing it. That's totally fine. So it's up to you whether or not you want to do that piece. Let me show you how we're going to tape this. Okay, so piece one, I'm going to take this shorter single piece that doesn't have any extra cuts on it. I want to find my kneecap, which on me is right in here, and then tearing off one end of the tape. My anchor at the beginning and end of every piece of tape is going to have 0 stretch on it. I'm just placing it down the way that it comes off. The part in between is what we do differently. So what I want to do is find the outer edge of that kneecap. I'm going to tape the edge just outside of that. Now, most people need some support coming inward from the outside of their knee. That's why I'm starting out here. I'm going to pull so that I have at least 50% stretch, if not more, across the majority of this, pulling across to the other side. And then once I'm down to the last inch or so, I'm going to go back to no extra tension on it, no extra stretch, and then placing it down like so. So right now I have a band going across my kneecap. Now, on some rare occasion, I find folks actually like a second one here just so they feel like they're covering a little bit more of their kneecap. But I find for most people, being right in the center is a pretty good spot. So then for the other piece, I'm going to take this, again, tear off the first piece. This is going to come just inside. So if I were to draw an imaginary line up the center of my thigh and find the inside edge of that kneecap or patella, I'm going to come just inside there. And like I said, you can choose to overlap or not. First time I try to avoid overlapping if possible. First bit, I'm going to press down without any resistance or tension, and then I'm going to add a little bit. So now I have these two tails to deal with. This first one, I like to peel off the backing as I'm placing, but I'm going to put about 50% tension. I'm going to make a pretty sharp angle towards the center of my thigh and continue following it up towards the top, start wrapping back over so that I'm towards the inner half of my thigh. And then again, the last inch or so, I place with 0 tension. And then similarly, I'm going to go an opposite angle. I'm going to come outward, place with about 50% tension most of the way up, and then the last inch or so, I'm placing without tension. So what I've done here is I've created this little oval shape around my knee. The idea with this is that it's helping to activate this inner thigh muscle just a little bit, giving a little bit more support here, while we're also having some physical support coming across here. So the real quick explanation of this again, this first piece is a single piece that we start out here, 0 tension to begin. at least 50% tension coming across, depending on how much support that you want. And then the last inch or so is with 0 tension. And then this one we cut as one long strip that gets a split most of the way down except for the last couple of inches. Place the first inch or so with 0 tension, and then about 50% coming up. You can decide which one you want to start with, but in either case, we're going to make a bit of an angle, about 50% tension coming all the way around, coming back in towards one another, and placing that last inch or so of each side with 0 tension. I want to cut this strip long enough so that I'm ending up at least halfway up my thigh, if not closer to 3/4. I don't really want to go any higher than that, but this is a pretty good measurement for my proportions to get the desired effect for this tape job.